Hi, I'm Rick Wollum. Tonight I'd like to tie a red fox squirrel nymph, soft tackle, in honor of my good friend Dave Whitlock, who passed away in the last few months. And it's a great pattern, and it's caught me a lot of fish. So the first thing I use is the thread. I use a rust brown 8/0 thread. Again, I like 8/0 thread because of the control I get. It's low bulk, and I can lay my thread wraps precisely. The hook I'm going to use is this is a Dairiki 075. Dairiki is no longer on the market, but you can use several different hooks, like a 3769 Tiemco, any kind of 1X long wet fly hook. The tailing material is, I've got a red fox squirrel skin, and I'm going to pick from the middle here as the tailing, and it's just got really good barring. I cut a little piece off, and you'll see how I tie that in. The abdomen of the fly is a mixture of the red fox squirrel nymph. On the edges of the squirrel, or the belly of the squirrel, it's more rust color, and it's a two-tone, basically, kind of like a hare's ear. And then the thorax is a mixture of the darker, and this is also, the dubbing is also mixed with an antron to give it a little bit of sheen and sparkle. And then the rib is, I'm using the Lagarten flat oval braid, and in gold. The first thing I want to do is take my hook, I take my plier, and I'm running in line with the shank of the hook and pinching that barb down. And that'll ensure that the hook will not break. Sometimes if I do it this way, I've broken hooks, and somebody showed me this, and this is a much better way of doing it without breaking the hook off when you're pinching the barb down. I'm going to attach my thread where I want the abdomen to end and the thorax to begin. I'm using that as a measurement of where I want to separate the two materials. I go back about the point of the barb. This is where I reach in taking my scissor points and snipping off some of that tailing material, kind of rolling it in my fingers to get it to do exactly what I want it to do. I might kind of self-stack it, trying to get those tails fairly even. Transferring to my left hand, kind of knowing my measure, come up with my thread. I pinch it between my index finger and thumb. You can see how this is loose. And then I want to come straight down with tension, and that'll ensure that that material gets put right on top of the hook. And I'll do that 2 or 3 times just to make sure that tail is secure. Again, I like to wrap behind the tail. I kind of post it up, it kind of locks it into position And then I just cover up those butt ends. I'm constantly preening and looking at that tail to get exactly what I want out of it. And that's a personal preference. Next, I'm going to take my ribbing material, trim off the length I need, tie that in, wrapping it again forward to where the thread ends, coming all the way back to the tail. I'm going to make one wrap behind the rib, and then I'm going to lock that into place. Next, I want to take my dubbing wax. In this case, it's Overton's Wonder Wax. It's been gone from the market for way too long. Happy to have it back. It's, in my opinion, the best dubbing wax out there. I'll kind of paint that onto my thread. Grab my dubbing material again. I can get this from several different, I can either cut it off the hide and do it myself, or there are several manufacturers that sell it. So this is kind of a light rust color. And I'm pinching off the amount I think I need. Kind of spinning that loosely onto my thread. As I get it the way I want, I get a nice even noodle. I'll tighten it up with rolling it between my index finger and thumb. I'm going to take one wrap or two behind the rib. That ensures that the rib will not slide off of the back of the hook. Adjust my thread so it's easier to manipulate, and then I wrap that forward. And with this dubbing, the guard hairs are still in place. I will trim that back a little bit just to get a nice taper to the body. Next, I'm going to run my rib through, ensuring that I have a nice even spiral forward. Tie it off at the end of the thread wraps, a couple turns behind, a couple turns in front. Reach in with my scissors and trim that out. Again, I'm kind of cleaning this up with my scissors, ensuring a nice taper, but I still want it to look pretty buggy. Again, using my dubbing wax, I'll paint a little of that dubbing wax onto my thread. Next, I'm going to take the darker red fox squirrel and use that as the thorax of the fly. Evenly spreading that onto the thread. Got a nice big noodle of dubbing. And again, rolling it between my thumb and index finger and tightening that up. I can make a couple of wraps and continue to tighten that And I do want this to be nice and buggy. Now Dave used several variations of this to create the different insects that were in the water. This could imitate a stonefly. It could imitate a large mayfly. Next thing I'm going to do is take my partridge hackle. And again, you can see the barring in the hackle and then all this fluff. Some people like to keep a little bit of fluff on it. I'm going to kind of measure that and strip off all the excess that I don't need. I will sweep this back, and for me it really helps to get my hackle pliers and grab the tip of the feather. That way I can really go in and strip exactly the length I want out of it. Not happy with a couple of those, so I'm going to reattach. I go in with my scissors and trim kind of a triangle out of the tip of the feather. That way when I tie it in, I tie that point in, get it to where I want it, make a couple of wraps, push the tip of the feather back, and lock that in with my thread. I have the sort of the convex or the concave part of the feather back, and I'll reach in with my index finger and thumb and kind of stroke those fibers back, ensuring my first wrap as I attach my hackle pliers. Ensure that they're not going to get trapped down by my progressive wraps forward. You can use several different hooks. You can use several different methods. You can use it without the soft hackle in front. There's just a lot of different things that Dave would use. Wing cases on this fly. It's a very versatile fly. It's one of my favorite flies to fish in Yellowstone in the fall. It can imitate a October caddis. It can imitate a stonefly nymph. There are a lot of, it's a very versatile fly. And now I'm going to just go ahead and reach in, cut the quill. Build a nice head with my thread. Reach in with my whip finish tool. Several wraps. Lock it into place. Just kind of preening those feathers and sweeping them back the way I want them before reaching in with my head cement. Just giving a nice coating on that, on those thread wraps to finish the fly. I really like the Trout Hunter head cement, as it is a water base and it's very easy to use. I can thin it by just adding a little bit more water. And that is Dave Whitlock's Red Fox Squirrel Nymph.